Thanks, guys. We've got Grace back with us again. And yesterday she broke you the news on FreightWaves.com of the ASG Trucker Tools deal. And today we're talking all about visibility and what those growth partners mean and their strategies for growth in this market. Grace, welcome back to FreightWaves Now this morning.
Hey, good morning, Kaylee. Thanks for having me back. Appreciate it.
Oh yeah, we love it when you're here to talk with us all about this stuff. So we've talked a lot to you about visibility and the way that these platforms are starting to grow and really take up space in the market. Of course, we talked to Trucker Tools founder yesterday, Prasad Galapalli, about his whole idea behind scaling his product and getting involved with ASG to kind of make it bigger, better, and just improve everything all around. Talk to us a little bit about what you gleaned from talking to him about scaling his business.
Yeah, well, I've known Prasad for a little bit now, and I just congratulations to him and his team. I think this was such a great move for them, and in my time in brokerage, it was always interesting for me to see the tools that the carriers really gravitated towards. And there's definitely a couple out there that they really trust and are open to adopting with not much pressure or sales pitch to it. And Trucker Tools was definitely one of them. I'd say another huge one in the market is MacroPoint, which Descartes picked up as well. And it's just very interesting to see these different visibility companies really growing, especially during this last quarter. But there are various growth strategies. So especially these niche players like Trucker Tools who have developed such an interesting relationship and partnership with carriers and have built their tools around the carrier's needs, where there's definitely other players who have put the needs of large enterprises first, which is definitely not a wrong way to do it. They're just very different strategies. So it's interesting to see how these companies have really grown over the last few months.
Again this morning. You talked about trust there, and I think this is an important point given how segmented the carrier market is. We know 95% of the trucks are owned by fleets with less than 6 trucks. So it's a very segmented market, and trust is very difficult to build. What are some of the things that these visibility companies have done to garner trust? What has Trucker Tools done to build that trust, and why are carriers so willing to trust them?
Yeah, so Trucker Tools, I feel like, has always put the carrier first when building their applications and building the accessory tools that come with just that tracking ability. So Trucker Tools, right? They've got the ability for carriers to find parking spots, to gauge fuel prices across different areas in the United States. Of course, the Book It Now abilities and the integrations with really strong partnerships with carriers already, like Truck Stop, right? So it's really great to see them grow. Now, you do see it in other players, right? Like if you look at Four Kites or Project 44, I would say that they started with making sure that they're hitting the visibility needs of more of the shipper side. But over time, they've developed these like yard management tools and things of that nature to really help with their large fleet partnerships that they have in place as well. So I think it's really interesting. A lot of the discussions I've had with technology leaders, especially over the last I'm going to even bring it down to like 14 days, is they've realized it's interesting. They've realized that they've won the shipper, right? The shippers and these large OEMs, they have the tools, most of the tools that they need. I think a lot of it is really with all these aggregated data sets is cleaning that out and making the tool more advantageous to them. But a lot of them now are focusing on the carrier. They're starting to realize that in these markets where the carriers do have the upper hand, they are going to want these value-added tools to help really expand their businesses. And I think that's really what you saw from the Trucker Tools growth, is that they're able to onboard all these carriers, but then all these carriers, right, because of the efficiencies of Trucker Tools, now need other tools that make their business more efficient. We talked about a couple weeks ago with the carriers as a service, right? It's the same exact model. And I love that it's starting to affect the visibility products, because I think that's what's really going to complete the full circle of visibility and optimize not just the decision making and the the reaction to problems that happen within transit, but really just get both sides of the field, the shippers, the receivers, and the carriers, all integrated into the same model, so that all of the available capacity is being used to the best of its ability.
And so, Grace, you're talking about capturing that shipper side, capturing that carrier side, but then what about the 3PL? What about the intermediary? When do these places, these visibility platforms kind of turn their attention to, okay, we've got both sides, now we can focus on the middleman? What does that need to look like to get the intermediary involved in all of this visibility too?
I love that you brought that up, because even to start with what I had said previously, I was a big fan of the tool in the brokerage space. And the reason being for that, especially for these small and medium sized brokers, was there are thousands of, right? You can cater these needs to larger brokerage, but I think companies like CH Robinson are already investing a lot of time and labor into solving visibility within their own companies. But these small and medium sized businesses, it's not something that they are going to have the staff and the abilities to build on their own. So a lot of times I think when these visibility companies focus on these extra value added tools, that is when a broker becomes very successful with it. Because like I said before, when trying to onboard these carriers onto these tools, to use within your own systems, you have to pitch it to them. You have to give them a reasoning that's not just, well, I want to know where you're at all moments in time, right? So it's much easier to for brokers to adopt these tools if they're able to say to the carrier while building a relationship, hey, we work with Fork Heights, we work with Project 44, we work with Trucker Tools, and we're able to also give you access to their platform, which will allow you to find the best price in fuel, find better parking. And the thing about a brokerage is that a lot of the time when you're selling loads, you're selling the logistics of the load. For instance, let's say I'm going into the Northeast. Let's say I'm going to Massachusetts. Carriers hate Massachusetts because there's almost nowhere to park. So if I can tell them, like, quite literally, it's an interesting area, because a lot of times they need to maneuver and make sure they're not there past a certain time, or they'll get pulled over they'll get towed immediately. So to be able to say, hey, I'm going to send you to Massachusetts, and I'm also going to be linking you with a tool that's going to allow you to find somewhere to park or to find gas quickly so you can get in and out of the city very quickly. That's a huge value to brokers. So I think if there's any brokers out there looking to start adopting these tools, is have discussions with their carriers, put out surveys, and start to find which of these visibility tools has the extra services that you're going to need in order to onboard these carriers.
Yeah, Grace, might help bust out a little bit of the animosity between carriers and brokers sometimes. Grace, we only got a minute here, and I don't want to switch gears, but I did see that we had another unicorn status in freight tech, or in a freight forwarder, this time in Forto. Can you tell me a little bit about their raise?
Yeah, so thanks, Adrian. We can talk about this, definitely. So Forto is a huge, more European, I would say, freight forwarder. And what's really great to see is that, especially with these unicorns, is a lot of these connections have to do with visibility, or especially optimizing the available capacity. And so with Forto, what they're really doing that's great over there is they're able to really connect with these large enterprises in order to make sure that they have the leverage that they need to give their customers the best price possible. So I think what you're really seeing in June, which I guess I'm more used to, like a slower market this month, is that a lot of the investments that VC is making is going into being able to help customers optimize every single mode within their transportation. So I think a lot of the problems that we're seeing now with supply when it comes to going to the grocery store are more of like our end consumer issues, or with Amazon's Prime Day, like getting things here in one day. It all stems from somewhere, and so it's great to see that there's these investments in different companies that are trying to really optimize not just the on the road, the actual truck, but every single mode of transportation that our goods flow through. So,
Grace, thank
yeah, it's been
you.
a crazy June.
Thanks for joining us, Grace. We got to wrap you short. Like we said, we could talk for
Yeah, you're
forever
good.
about all of this stuff. Thank you so much for joining us this morning for your top